What happens when you walk into your own store and realize the people running it don't care about the people keeping it alive? Reid Mathers had been uneasy for weeks. His grocery chain's 16 locations spread across 3 states had grown fast in the last 7 years. He bought it from a retiring couple who built it from scratch, and Reid had promised to keep their values alive. But lately, something wasn't sitting right. Complaints were trickling in long waits, rude cashiers, shelves left bare. His district managers kept brushing it off as growing pains. Still, Reid had learned a long time ago, people don't lie, but numbers can. So he decided to see it for himself. He picked Store 7, a medium-sized market in a working-class neighborhood just outside Kansas City. No major complaints had come from there directly, but that worried him more. If something was wrong, and no one was talking, that meant fear. Or worse, apathy. He went in on a Thursday afternoon, dressed in worn jeans, a faded hoodie, and a trucker hat pulled low. His beard had grown out just enough to hide the clean-cut face people had seen in news articles or company videos. Most of the staff had never met him anyway, just saw his name on the break room posters that no one read. He grabbed a basket and walked through the aisles slowly. The place looked decent, but there was a tension in the air. A young girl stocking chips caught his eye. She looked about 19, moving fast like she was late for something. A middle-aged man near the dairy section barked at her. "Nat, you done with aisle 4 yet, or what? You think we got all day?" "Almost finished, Mr. Connors," she said quickly, eyes down. Reid paused. The tone was sharp, but not unusual. Still, something about the way she flinched didn't sit right. He moved toward the produce section. A woman with a toddler in her cart was trying to find bananas that weren't half brown. Reid gently picked up one of the better bunches and handed it to her. "Thanks," she said, smiling. "You work here?" He shook his head. "Just shopping." He reached the checkout area and picked line 3. The cashier was the same girl from before Nat. Her name tag said Natalie T. She smiled politely, but her hands were trembling. "Did you find everything okay?" she asked. "Yeah," Reid said. "You all right?" She hesitated. "I fine." But she wasn't. Behind her, Mr. Connors leaned against the wall, with his arms crossed, watching her every move. Reid placed a loaf of bread and some milk on the belt. Natalie scanned them quickly, but when she reached for the eggs, her hand slipped. The carton fell and cracked on the counter. Connors stepped in instantly. "Are you serious, Natalie? That's coming out of your check." "I'm sorry," she whispered. "It just slipped." "Yeah, it always just slips with you. You're lucky I don't write you up again." Reid froze. "Again?" Natalie's hands started shaking harder. She tried to clean up the eggs with paper towels, but her eyes welled up fast, and before she could stop it, she let out a quiet sob. "I'm trying my best," she said, voice cracking. Customers behind him shifted awkwardly. One woman looked like she wanted to say something, but didn't. Reid stepped aside, letting the cleanup happen, but his jaw clenched. He watched Connors walk away without another word, like he'd just swatted a fly. Natalie wiped at her eyes and kept scanning. Reid leaned in quietly. "You okay?" She sniffled and nodded. "I've fine." "I'll be fine." He didn't push, just paid, took his bag, and stepped to the side. But he didn't leave. He waited near the exit, watching as Connors berated another employee over a cart left near the door. This time a teenage boy, maybe 16. The kid didn't even look up. Reid's stomach turned. It wasn't just Natalie. This store had problems. Big ones. He stepped outside, sat on the bench by the sliding doors, and stared at his receipt. He'd bought this place to make lives better. But standing here, seeing how his people were being treated, he felt like a stranger to his own company. And for the first time in a long time, Reid Mathers wasn't sure if he'd failed them or if he'd just let the wrong people run the show. Reid returned the next day before sunrise. He parked far from the front doors and waited until the first shift arrived. A few workers trickled in through the employee entrance at the side, heads down, bags slung over shoulders. No one looked like they were in a rush, not because they were lazy, but because there wasn't much to look forward to once they got inside. At 6:15, he stepped into the manager's office with a forged transfer form in hand. It listed him as Evan Carter, a new hire relocated from a closed-down branch in Illinois. The morning assistant manager, a woman named Belinda, barely glanced up from her desk. "Put your stuff in locker 9. The code's taped inside. You shadow dairy and frozen today." She didn't ask for ID. She didn't introduce herself. She didn't even ask if he knew the store layout. Just turned back to her screen and started clicking through inventory tabs. Locker 9 had a broken latch and smelled faintly of onions. He slipped on the store vest, faded navy with a patch peeling off the back, and made his way to the back room. The first person who spoke to him was a stalker named Miguel. Early 20s, sharp eyes, sleeves rolled to his elbows despite the chill in the cooler. He gave Reid a quick glance and nodded. "New guy?"
"Yeah."
"Evan," Reid said, offering a hand. Miguel shook it. "You get dairy." "Lucky. I'm stuck restocking frozen peas for the 3rd day straight. Walk-ins leaking again. So don't lean right." Reid followed him past the pallets and into the cooler. The floor near the back wall was slick with water. A crate of half-thawed chicken breasts sat beside a mop bucket, unattended. "This happen often?" Reid asked. Miguel shrugged. "Only when it's cold. And hot. And medium." He grinned faintly and moved on. By 7, Reid had stocked half the milk shelf and learned that the store ran with a skeleton crew. 2 stockers per shift, sometimes 3 if someone picked up extra hours. Miguel said the third guy, Tyler, used to work mornings, but he'd quit last month after a shouting match with the general manager. He told Connors he wasn't going to clean up the rat droppings behind the soda shelves without gloves. Connors told him to grow up. Reid didn't respond, just kept shelving cartons of almond milk, hands colder than he expected. He noticed a few bottles labeled for a call wrong expiration dates. He set those aside. At 8, the store opened. Reid moved toward the front to help restock the impulse racks. That's when he saw Natalie again. Her eyes were rimmed with red, but she moved with careful speed, folding receipts, checking drawer totals. She kept her head down. He stepped into the aisle behind her lane and began straightening gum packs. She looked over briefly, then back to her work. "You're new," she said quietly. "First day," he replied. She paused. "You'll be fine. Just don't make waves." Before he could respond, Connors came around the corner holding a clipboard. He stopped when he saw Reid. "You dairy?" "Yes, sir." "Where's your name tag?" Reid checked his vest, then his pocket. "Didn't get one this morning." Connors stared. "Get one by tomorrow or don't come back." He walked off without another word. Natalie didn't look up again. At 10, Reid was told to help bag during the rush. An older woman in lane 1 was having trouble lifting a gallon of water into her cart. Reid stepped in quickly. "Let me get that for you, ma'am." She smiled, clearly surprised. "Thank you, young man." Connors, standing 5 feet away, didn't acknowledge it. Instead, he barked at a nearby cashier. "Lane 5's light. Why's nobody opening it?" "Because we're short again," the cashier said. Her badge read Tina. She had a deep voice and a tired edge to it. "Then run it yourself. I'm on break." "You're not anymore." Tina gave him a long look but walked off without answering. Reid saw her toss a protein bar back into her pocket as she turned. By lunch, the atmosphere had soured. Reid ate cold pasta in the break room while Miguel flipped through a fantasy novel with torn corners. A tall kid came in, maybe 17, with a fresh bruise on his forearm. He dropped into the seat next to Reid and groaned. "Tell me I don't have to face Connors again today." Miguel looked over. "Did something happen?" "He told me to clean up a broken jar near checkout, right? Glass everywhere. I asked for gloves. He said, Use napkins, you're not made of glass. Reid looked at the bruise. You cut yourself? Nicked it on the cart corner, rushing back. He said I was being dramatic. Reid stood up and left his food untouched. He walked straight to the loading bay and found Belinda checking a shipment. You're the assistant manager, right? She nodded, not looking up. What's wrong? There's a kid bleeding in the break room. She sighed. Again? Reid stared. You know about this? She finally looked up. Look, Connors is rough, but he gets results. You're new. Don't get in the middle. I'm not asking for advice. I'm telling you your GM let a miner handle broken glass without gloves. She crossed her arms. We're short-staffed. We do what we have to.
No.
You do what's legal and safe. That wasn't. Belinda's expression didn't change. You're not in charge. She walked off. Reid's fists clenched in his vest pockets. He didn't say another word. By evening, he knew what he had to do. He returned the next day, this time without the vest. Clean button-down shirt, pressed slacks, and a company badge around his neck. He entered through the front doors. Miguel was mopping near the floral display. Natalie stood at register 3, eyes widening as she saw him. Connors came out from the back, already barking orders. He stopped short when he saw Reid. You lost, or? Reid held up a hand. Everyone, please pause what you're doing. The room quieted. Customers turned. Employees froze. My name is Reid Mathers. I own this store. Dead silence. Reid scanned the room. If you've ever been afraid to speak up here, I want you to hear me clearly. That ends today. Connors laughed once, sharp. Nice act. You're kidding, right? I'm not. Reid turned to Natalie. Can you confirm I was here yesterday? She nodded slowly.
Yes.
You bagged groceries and helped restock. He turned to Miguel. Did you show me the leaking freezer? Yeah, Miguel said. Wait. You're the owner? Reid looked back to Connors. You've been running this store with fear, intimidation, and negligence. You endangered a miner. You've created a culture where employees are afraid to ask for gloves. Connors scoffed. He slipped. I didn't. You're done, Reid said firmly. Effective immediately. Leave the building. Connors looked around for support and found none. Security, notified in advance, stepped up from near the customer service desk. Connors muttered something under his breath and stormed out the side door. Belinda appeared moments later, face pale. You too, Reid said before she could speak. You knew and did nothing.
She didn't argue.
Just turned and followed Connors out. Reid faced the staff. I'm not here to make a speech. I'm here to listen. Starting tomorrow, we'll have interim leadership from the regional team. Everyone will be scheduled for one-on-ones over the next week. If you've been overworked or underpaid, we'll fix that. If you've been treated unfairly, we'll hear you. A slow ripple moved across the staff. Disbelief, then cautious relief. Natalie stepped forward. Thank you. Reid nodded. Don't thank me. Thank yourselves for staying this long. He looked around the store messier, then he remembered, smaller than it had seemed on paper, but full of people worth fighting for. He'd come undercover to find the truth. What he found was a team desperately holding things together despite the people meant to lead them. And now, finally, things would change. By Monday morning, word had spread. Reid arrived early, this time in plain clothes, no disguise. No badge, just a clipboard and a quiet presence. The regional team had taken over temporary management duties, led by a soft-spoken operations lead named Danielle, who'd worked with Reid for over 5 years. She was methodical, calm under pressure, and had a reputation for rebuilding fractured teams without drama. Reid didn't hover. He'd seen enough damage done by people pretending to help when really they just wanted to be seen doing something. Instead, he settled into a small office that used to be filled with dusty marketing posters and unopened mail. Now it had a folding table, a laptop, and a rotating chair borrowed from the front desk. He'd scheduled 10-minute check-ins with every employee over the next 4 days. He didn't ask for resumes, didn't take notes during the meetings. He just wanted to hear them. The first to walk in was Tina, the cashier, who'd been forced off break. She sat with her arms crossed, jaw stiff. "You want to know if I've got complaints?" she said without hesitation. "I do. But I'm guessing you already know most of them." "I want to hear them from you," Reid said. She hesitated. They made it feel like we were the problem. Like being tired was laziness. Like asking for help was weakness. She tilted her head slightly. "You're not going to fix that in a week." "I know." She stood up. "Then don't promise anything fast. Just make it real when it comes." By the end of the day, Reid had spoken to 13 employees. Each offered a different piece of the same broken picture. No protection during heavy lifts, no training for new hires, hours cut without warning, and a rotation of night shift workers quitting after 2 weeks from burnout. One bagger had been working since he was 15 and still made less than minimum wage after taxes because of a paperwork error no one had corrected for 2 years. When Miguel stepped in for his turn, he tossed a folded paper onto the desk. "Inventory log for last Monday. Figured you'd want to see where the freezer started going bad." Reid unfolded it. Several items were marked as soft or partially thawed. No action had been taken. "You reported this?"
Twice. Was told to keep it quiet.
"Didn't want corporate thinking we were reckless." Reid folded the paper again. "Did anyone get sick?" Miguel nodded. "Customer came in Friday, said his shrimp smelled off. We pulled it, but the damage was done." Reid didn't speak. Just tapped the desk once and stood. That night, he walked the floor alone after closing. Natalie was dusting the gum shelves again, same spot as before. She looked up when he passed. "You staying late?" "Finishing notes." She watched him for a moment. Then, quietly, "You know they used to make us clock out before cleaning up?" Said it was part of closing culture. "You still doing that?" "Not since Saturday." "Good." She looked down, then back up. "Did you mean it?" "That things you'll change." "I did." She nodded once, then turned back to the shelf. The following day, Reid met with a high schooler who'd been cut by the jar cleanup. His name was Isaiah. He had a quiet voice and a habit of tapping his fingers on the underside of the chair. "First job?" Reid asked. Isaiah nodded. "Mom said I could work part-time if I kept my grades up." "You like it here?" "I did. First 2 weeks were okay. Then Mr. Connors started yelling. Said I was walking too slow. Didn't matter if I was helping someone." "Did you tell anyone?" "No point. Everyone said he was just like that." Reid leaned forward. "You should need to be tough to bag groceries." Isaiah blinked, surprised. "You sound like my mom." "She sounds smart." He left the office with a small grin. That afternoon, Danielle handed Reid a folder. Inside were 5 names employees who had been denied raises despite documented performance reviews recommending them. One had been passed over 3 times despite training new hires. Another had been told, "There's no budget," while the store racked up record sales. "Any of them still here?" Reid asked.
3.
"One quit 2 weeks ago. The other?" Danielle trailed off. "Let go. No reason listed." "Find out why." The deeper they looked, the more rot they found. Not theft or fraud, just a quiet erosion of dignity. Shifts cut without notice to avoid overtime. Team leads made to skip lunch, while managers took 2. A cashier who was told to remove her headscarf because it made customers uncomfortable. That one halted the day. Danielle pulled the shift record. The manager responsible had transferred 6 months ago, still with the company. "Call HR," Reid said. "She doesn't work here anymore." Danielle didn't ask for clarification. She just picked up the phone. Later that evening, Reid met with the overnight stock team. A group of 4, 2 men, 2 women. All clocked in at 9 and worked until sunrise. They rarely saw daylight, rarely interacted with customers, and rarely received praise. One of them, a woman in her 40s named Larissa, spoke up. Feels strange seeing someone from the top down here.
Why?
Because usually they just send emails. Or surveys. Never people. Reid nodded. Those don't work? She shook her head. Not when we know no one's reading. The man beside her, Devin, leaned back in his chair. You really want to help? Give us a chance to move up. Not just keep shelves full until our backs give out. What's stopping you now? No one tells us how. We apply, we wait, nothing happens. They say we're not what they're looking for. Reid looked at each of them. Would you take a promotion if it came with real training? Only if we're not set up to fail, Larissa said. You wouldn't be. By Friday, Reid had spoken to every employee. The mood had shifted, cautious still, but steadier. People weren't rushing out the door at the end of their shifts. They weren't glancing over their shoulders when they asked questions. There was a silence between tasks, but it wasn't tense anymore. Just tired. That afternoon, he called a full staff meeting.
Noches, no śledź.
Just everyone standing behind closed doors in the produce section, the only area wide enough to hold them all. Reid stood on an overturned milk crate, clipboard in hand. I can't fix the past week. Or the last 6 months. But I can tell you exactly what's changing starting now. He looked around the room. No one interrupted. No one whispered. First, every denied raise will be reviewed. If the paperwork backs it, it's approved. Retroactive to the month it was ignored. A few people exchanged surprised glances. He continued. Second, we're hiring support staff from the regional roster to cover weekends and nights. You'll no longer be asked to do 3 jobs for 1 paycheck. Murmurs of relief rippled through the group. Third, every employee who wants to advance will be given a path. You'll know the requirements.
You'll get mentorship.
You'll have someone who answers when you ask how. A voice from the back, Miguel's, cut in. What about the freezer? Being replaced next week. With a warranty that doesn't expire for 10 years. Danielle stepped forward with a list of names. These 5 are being promoted to interim team leads. They'll help shape the new training program. We'll rotate them weekly until we've got a permanent schedule. Reid stepped down from the crate. This isn't a speech. I'm not asking for applause. I just want you to know what you've been surviving isn't normal. And it's not going to continue. Natalie raised her hand. Why now? Because I stopped listening to reports and started listening to people. No one clapped. No one cheered. But no one left either. That night, the store closed like it always did. Lights dimmed. Doors locked. But for the first time in a long time, the break room didn't empty in silence. Isaiah stayed behind 5 minutes to wipe down the carts without being asked. Tina offered to help a customer to their car, even though it wasn't her job. Miguel stayed late to show Devin a faster way to scan frozen inventory. Reid sat in the empty office and looked out through the glass. It was still the same building. Same walls. Same aisles. But it didn't feel the same anymore. And that meant something. Reid returned to Store 7 the following Monday, 5 minutes before opening. He waited by the side entrance, same as the staff, no fanfare, no clipboard this time. He wasn't here to oversee, he was here to observe. Quietly. Closely. Danielle greeted him with a nod, already mid-conversation with 2 stalkers about delivery timing. Overnight shifts had been rearranged to better match truck arrivals. It wasn't perfect yet, but it was functional. The new freezer was installed over the weekend without issue. Danielle had personally verified the temperature logs. Inside, the air was quieter. Still brisk, still early, but different. Natalie was at register too. Her shoulders weren't hunched anymore. She was talking to a customer about a local food drive and how the store was collecting canned goods. Reid noticed she had a volunteer sign-up sheet taped to the side of her counter. He approached slowly, picking up a box of cereal from the end cap. She saw him, offered a small nod, and continued ringing up a man with 2 kids. "You're the one who said change wouldn't be fast," she said once the line cleared. "You were right. It's not. But it's better now." Reid leaned slightly on the cart. "I heard you added a few more names to that sheet." "I did," she said. "Tina's bringing her church group. Miguel's cousin runs a pantry downtown. We figured if people are going to come in here, they might as well leave with something good beyond groceries." A woman stepped into line behind him. Natalie gave him a look that said, "Back to work." He understood. In the stockroom, Miguel was sealing up a half-used roll of shrink wrap. "You're early," Reid said. Miguel didn't look up, still figuring out how to train Devin. "He's got hustle, but he's got no system." "He asked to be trained?" Miguel nodded. "First guy in weeks I've seen ask questions nobody told him to." Reid watched as Devin entered from the loading bay, pushing a dolly stacked with pet food. He was moving slower than Miguel, but more focused. "You think he's ready for more hours?" "Yeah," Miguel said. "Just don't throw him straight into freezer rotation. That's a different beast." Reid nodded once and made a mental note. He found Danielle at the service desk reviewing time cards. "Any issues with the new shift structure?" "Some friction," she said, "but manageable." Larissa's stepping up, helping the new hires adjust. "She's more patient than I expected. She never had a reason to speak up before. She does now." Reid turned toward the front of the store. "Anything I should be worried about?" Danielle hesitated, flipping a page. "Just one thing. A customer complaint from Saturday. Not about service, about one of the former managers." "Connors?"
"No."
The assistant he brought up from another location. Name was Ellis. Never officially assigned here, but he'd been hovering around the back entrance. Security caught him talking to Tina on break. Reid's jaw tightened. What did he say? Tried to convince her to transfer out. Said this store was a sinking ship now that the real managers were gone. Where is he now? HR's already flagged him. He's been reassigned to administrative leave. We're reviewing his behavior at his current store too. Reid paused at that. Keep security aware. If he shows up again, I want it reported immediately. Danielle nodded. Already handled. Reid walked the aisles for the next hour. There were still gaps on the shelves, but they were smaller now. Fewer carts left abandoned. He passed Isaiah, filling the bottled water section. Not rushing but not dragging either. "You settling in okay?" Reid asked. Isaiah scratched at his name tag. "Still learning where everything goes. But Larissa showed me how to track stock by the case instead of by the bottle. That helped." "You feel safe?" Isaiah tilted his head.
"Yeah."
"That's new." Reid gave him a pat on the shoulder and moved on. By noon, he gathered the team leads in the break room. No one stood. No one sat at the head of the table. The air was work thick, not heavy. "We've got a window here," Reid said. "People are watching. Customers, other stores, regional. You've all stepped up when no one asked you to. That's not nothing." Tina sat at the end, arms crossed loosely. What happens when the next manager screws it up again? They won't have the chance.
"How?"
Because hiring doesn't happen behind closed doors anymore. You'll be part of the panel. Every leadership role from now on gets interviewed by at least 2 team leads plus Danielle.
Tina nodded slowly.
That's different.
"Good."
That's the point. Miguel leaned forward. What if someone's already trying to push that back? Quietly. Someone higher up. Then they'll find out what Connors did. And they'll leave the same way he did. Reid scanned the room. This isn't about me fixing things. It's about making sure no one can break them again. He stood, let the silence settle. You've got the next 2 weeks to submit ideas. Real ones. Policies, schedules, ways to make this store run better. Anything worth funding, it gets funded. Anything worth approving, it gets approved. Danielle added, and if it's not approved, you'll get a reason. Not a brush off. No one spoke right away. Then Larissa, who hadn't said a word until now, raised her hand slightly. We used to run a quiet hour on Wednesdays, she said. Lower lights, no music, fewer announcements. For people with sensory issues. Connors cut it, said it was creepy. Reid looked at Danielle. Put it on the calendar, she said. Starting next week. Reid turned back to the group. That's what this is. Not quick fixes, course correction. After the meeting, he stayed behind. Cleaned out the old manager's desk, found a stack of unfiled safety reports and a faded staff photo from 5 years ago. He didn't recognize half the faces. He slipped the photo into his bag and locked the drawer. Later that afternoon, a boy wandered in with his mother. The boy was on crutches, maybe 10 years old. They were looking for a specific cereal that wasn't on the shelf. Reid spotted them in aisle 4 and flagged down Devin. See if we've got more of that in back, Reid said. Devin didn't ask why, just nodded and jogged off. The boy's mother blinked. You work here? Not officially, Reid said. But I care what happens here. Devin returned 4 minutes later with the cereal box in hand. The boy grinned. As they headed to check out, the mother turned back. This place feels different than it used to. Reid gave a small nod. It is. That evening, he stepped outside as the last shift was clocking out. The sun was low. April wind tugged at the flag above the entrance. Natalie passed him on the way to her car. You staying late again? Not tonight, Reid said. Store's in good hands. She unlocked her door, paused. You planning to do this at the other stores? He looked out across the lot. One at a time. She nodded. Start here. Finish here. He watched her drive off, then turned back to the door. A week ago, this place had broken someone at the register. Now it was starting to feel like a place worth rebuilding. Not because someone at the top gave a speech, but because someone finally listened and never stopped.